AITA for letting my older son bring my youngest son's ex to the wedding rehearsal? I have 2 sons. They're only 2 years apart. They grew up together. They went to the same schools, played with the same friends, fought over the same video game console. The usual. They were never the type of brothers to say, "I love you," or anything like that, but they were there for each other. If one had a problem, the other was by his side, even if it was just to crack a stupid joke and get a laugh. But recently, that all went to hell. Everything. The bomb dropped the day my youngest called to talk about his wedding. Up until then, everything was normal. He asked if we could meet at the house one Saturday to plan some things. We said yes, of course. We were thrilled with the idea. I had already heard him talk a lot about his fiancée, although we hadn't met her yet. He said she was the love of his life, that she was different from all the others, there were several, that everything felt right with her. The usual. You get old enough to not entirely believe those things, but we still smiled and supported him. We never interfered too much in our children's romantic decisions. Everyone makes their own way. That Saturday arrived. He came alone, without her. He said she was busy with work and would come another day. The conversation started well. Flowers, live music, a menu with vegan options because the bride was vegan. Everything was fine. But at one point, he lowered his voice and said he needed to talk about something more serious. We looked at him. I thought he was going to ask us for money for the wedding, because it had happened before, but no. What he said was, "I don't want you to invite my brother to the wedding. He can't come." Just like that, cold, as if he were asking us not to serve chicken. I laughed. I thought it was a joke. I said, "What are you saying? What do you mean you don't want your brother to come?" And that's when everything changed. He looked at me, didn't laugh, didn't blink, just said, "I'm marrying someone he dated before. I don't want drama. I don't want a scene. I don't want him to come." My wife and I were silent for a few seconds. We didn't understand anything. We asked, "What do you mean someone he dated before? Who is she?" He took a deep breath, looked down and said, "They dated a couple of years ago, but it was already over between them when we started. I didn't steal anything from him. It wasn't on purpose. It just happened." I didn't know what to say, neither did my wife. We looked at each other and tried to process it. Then I asked what any parent would ask. "Are you dating your brother's ex, and you're going to marry her?" He nodded, calmly, as if there was nothing strange about this. And then he added, "They haven't spoken in a while, and I don't want him to come and ruin my day." I still didn't understand, because as far as I knew, my sons were still talking. Not every day, but there was interaction. A few months ago, they even went to a Lakers game together. So I asked him when he had stopped talking to his brother. He told me that months ago they had had a huge argument about this, that the oldest didn't take it well, that he had called him a traitor, that he told him if he married her to forget about him. And he, the younger one, had decided to go ahead anyway. He said he wasn't going to lose the woman of his life for a youthful romance that no longer meant anything. There I felt like I was sinking into quicksand, but I still tried to be rational. I told him that his brother had the right to feel hurt, that it's not as simple as she didn't love him anymore, that there are things you don't touch, that between brothers there are lines you don't cross. And he replied, "So I have to be unhappy just so he doesn't get angry?" And that's when I lost it. I told him no, that he couldn't ask me that I wasn't going to choose between my children, that he had the right to marry whomever he wanted, but that he couldn't ask me to exclude his brother. I told him that as a father I couldn't endorse that decision, and he left. Without saying goodbye, the house fell silent, and, for the first time, I felt that something really messed up had broken between them, something that might never be fixed. I didn't know what to do that day, neither did my wife. We both sat on the couch, in silence, as if someone had given us bad news, because that's how it felt, like a loss, a strange betrayal, not because of what he did, but because of everything that was at stake and how it was falling apart. I didn't sleep that night. I tossed and turned in bed thinking about everything I didn't know. When had all this started? How serious had my oldest son and that woman been? Why didn't the youngest have even a little shame or guilt? And above all, what were we supposed to do now? The next day, I called my oldest son. I didn't know how to approach the conversation. I didn't want to add fuel to the fire. I just wanted to understand. He answered, but it was obvious he was cold, distant, not like before. I told him I needed to talk to him, that something important had happened. He said, "I know what happened. I already found out." And then he told me everything. He told me that they had dated for almost 2 years, that it wasn't a teenage fling or something casual, that it was his first serious relationship, that he introduced her to his friends, that he thought about marrying her at some point, that yes. In the end, they broke up because she wasn't in the same place emotionally, but that it was still tough. He told me that they stayed in touch for months after breaking up, that sometimes they talked, that they tried to be friends, that she was someone who, even though it was over, still stirred something in him. And then, months later, his brother appears. He started seeing her, according to him, without telling him anything, secretly. And when he found out, he exploded. He told me he sent him a long, furious message, that they argued, that they said everything to each other, and that his brother, instead of stopping, replied with phrases like, "She doesn't belong to you, and you can't control what she feels for me." The anger was evident in his voice. He told me that he didn't understand how someone could do that to their own brother. That if it were a stranger, fine. But his own flesh and blood? What kind of person does that, he asked me. I didn't know what to say, because he was right. I asked him if he still had feelings for her. He said he didn't know. That probably not. That the problem wasn't her anymore. That the problem now was the other one, his brother. That's what hurts. That he didn't care what this would do to me. I told him his brother had asked us not to invite him to the wedding. There was a long silence, and then he laughed, a bitter, empty laugh. He said, "So now he wants to erase me from the family too." I told him we weren't going to do that we weren't going to leave him out, that I wasn't going to play along with that craziness. And then, for a second, I felt him break a little. He said, "Thank you." I didn't know whose side they were going to be on, but that didn't make things any better. On the contrary, what came next was worse. A week later, the formal wedding invitation arrived. It had everything. Elegant card, photos of them together, a link to a website to RSVP. That was the first time we saw her face, the older son's ex, smiling, hugging the younger one, as if none of the above had ever happened, as if the whole past had been erased. My wife left the invitation on the table and said, "This is a time bomb." We decided not to respond immediately. We wanted to see how everything unfolded. But only 3 days passed before we received a new message from our youngest son. It said, in short, "If you're going to invite him, don't count on me for this Sunday's family dinner or any other. Choose." Just like that, without further ado, he made us choose between the two of them. My wife wrote to him, begged him to calm down, to please not do that, to not ask for such a crazy thing. He didn't reply. I, in my desperation, went to his apartment. I don't like to intrude like that, but I didn't know what else to do. He opened the door for me. He was alone. He looked agitated, but not sad. There was no guilt, no shame, only anger. He said, "Everything has been said. If you're going to act like nothing happened, then don't count on me." I yelled at him. Yes, it came from my soul. I yelled at him, asking how he could be so selfish, so blind, that this wasn't love, that this was a messed up betrayal. He told me that I didn't understand, that he was only defending his right to be happy, and then I let him have it. I said, "And your brother's right not to be stabbed in the back? Where did that go?" He didn't answer. He asked me to leave, and I did. But as I was leaving, I saw something that stopped me cold. There was a wedding dress hanging in the living room. They already had it ready. The wedding was serious, everything was serious, and we had no idea what was coming. After that, we didn't talk to him again for a while. My wife didn't want to. She said she was fed up, that if he wanted to cut ties with everyone, let him. I couldn't. It's not that I wanted to fix things. There was nothing to fix at that point, but I had to understand something, anything, because what was eating me up inside wasn't that he was marrying his brother's ex, but that he didn't hesitate to turn it into a family war, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. Meanwhile, the oldest, he was different. He didn't say anything, but you could tell. He came home more often, but he was quiet. He ate in silence. He would get up to leave early, and every so often, he would drop little phrases, like when he asked, "What if I go to the wedding?" Not to support them, just to watch, to let them see that he wasn't broken. Or the time he said, "I'm already forgetting about her." But not him. I'll never forget about him. That hurt me more than anything else, because it was the first time I heard one of my sons talk about the other as if he were a stranger, as if there was nothing left between them. My wife tried to talk to him. She wanted to convince him not to go to the wedding, not to stoop to their level, not to turn it into a spectacle. He told her he would think about it, but he didn't promise anything. Weeks went by, and the day of the rehearsal arrived. We were invited at the last minute. They literally sent us the message the day before. My wife said she wasn't going, but I did. I don't know why. Maybe out of masochism, or because a part of me was still hoping it was all a giant misunderstanding, something that would be resolved at the last minute. Spoiler, it wasn't. The rehearsal was in a small hall in Pasadena, California. Nice place, surrounded by gardens, with a decoration that you could tell someone had planned with great care. When I arrived, the atmosphere was strange. No one was speaking loudly. There was a tension hanging in the air. I don't know if it was because they knew the story or because everyone was uncomfortable having to pretend nothing was happening. And then I saw them arrive. Him, my youngest son, with her on his arm, like a movie scene. She was laughing, talking to a bridesmaid as if she didn't care about anything. Not the past, not the context, not the fact that she was marrying the brother of the guy she had dated for almost 2 years. She didn't show a hint of discomfort. And that was the worst, because I expected, at least, some humanity, some shame, something, but no. She looked at me, smiled, and said, "Hi, I'm so glad you came." I didn't know what to answer. I just nodded. I stayed in a corner. I watched as he greeted everyone, gave instructions, arranged things. She did the same. They were comfortable, confident, as if they were the happiest couple in the world. But the most messed up thing came later, because halfway through the rehearsal, while the organizer was explaining the steps of the ceremony, the front door opened and my oldest son walked in. Alone, standing, with a look I had never seen in him before. Everyone turned around. The youngest saw him, froze. Nobody said anything until the oldest, in a firm voice, said, "I just came to see if you had the guts to look me in the face." The silence was absolute. The younger one lowered his gaze. He didn't say anything. The bride did. The bride was the one who stepped forward. She said something like, "This is not the time or the place," but he didn't move. He stood there, staring at him, as if he were burning that image into his mind forever. I wanted to disappear. Nobody else said anything. The organizers didn't know what to do. The guests looked at each other as if they had witnessed a crime. My oldest son turned around and left, and I knew at that moment that there was no going back, that everything was broken forever. After that day, my wife and I stopped sleeping well. It wasn't just anguish. It was the feeling that we had a bomb in the middle of the family and nobody was doing anything to deactivate it. We looked at each other every morning. We drank coffee without saying a word, as if we were both waiting for something worse to happen. And we knew it was going to happen. The wedding was a week away. Everything indicated it was going to be a disaster. The day after the rehearsal, my oldest son came home again. He was calm, too calm. And that was weird. It wasn't peace. It was that calmness that comes from exhaustion when you don't feel like fighting anymore. He sat down, asked for a coffee, and said it point blank, "I'm not going to the wedding, but I don't want you to go either." We went blank. I asked him if he was serious. He said yes, that if we went, he felt like we were endorsing everything, that if his brother betrayed him, and then we did too, he had nothing more to do with this family. My wife almost cried. She told him it wasn't like that we wanted to be there for him, not for her, that he was our son. We weren't going to erase him from our lives. But he wasn't speaking from the heart. He was speaking from pain. And from that place, everything sounds like a threat, an ultimatum. He told us that we couldn't play neutral, that in this story there weren't two sides, that what his brother had done had no defense, and that if we went, for him it was the same as being on the other side. I stood up, walked around the kitchen, trying to process it. I told him it wasn't fair, that he couldn't force us to cut off our other son, that it wasn't about choosing sides, that we were trying not to lose either of them. He looked at me and said, "Then you're going to lose both of us." And he left. My wife broke down right there. She's not one to cry. But that day she cried, hugged me, and told me she didn't know what to do. Neither did I. I felt like a fool, like those guys who spend their time giving advice and then can't keep their own house in order. 2 days passed without news from either of them, until my youngest son showed up at home unannounced. He had an angry look on his face. He said he already knew what had happened at the rehearsal, that someone told him his brother showed up as if nothing had happened and made a scene. He used that word, scene, as if he didn't understand that this was a destroyed person, not an actor. I couldn't take it anymore. I told him to stop with the victim narrative, that he had caused all of this, that he couldn't expect the other one to applaud him and bring him flowers. And then everything went to pieces. He said he was fed up, that his brother had always been the favorite, that he was always the good son, the one who didn't make mistakes, the one everyone defended, that for once in his life, he had found something real, and now everyone wanted to make him feel like he was trash. I interrupted him. I told him that it had nothing to do with favoritism, that this wasn't a whim, that he had crossed a line, one that even strangers respect. But he wasn't listening. He didn't want to listen. He yelled, he cried. He told us that if we weren't going to the wedding, he didn't want to see us again. What was that? Either support him or disappear. So, again, another ultimatum. He left us there, shattered. That night my wife told me that she couldn't take it anymore, that she was going to the wedding, not because she supported him, but because he was her son, and because she couldn't live with the pain of losing both of them. I didn't say anything. I couldn't contradict her, but something inside me broke. And so we arrived at the wedding day. We left early. The place was beautiful, I have to admit, in Santa Barbara, overlooking the ocean, all decorated in white and green. A part of me thought, how messed up that a lie can look so pretty from afar. When we arrived, they welcomed us as if nothing had happened. The bride hugged us, thanked us for being there, as if she didn't know all the chaos behind it, or as if she didn't care. Her father looked uncomfortable. He greeted us coldly. I guess he wasn't very convinced about everything either, but at that point no one wanted to ruin the facade. We sat down, looked at the place, everything impeccable, people laughing, toasting, taking pictures as if it were just another wedding, as if emotional corpses hadn't been stepped on to reach that altar. And at that moment my cell phone rang. It was a message from my oldest son. It just said, I recorded everything. I didn't understand. I replied, what are you talking about? He replied, the rehearsal. The moment he saw me walk in, I recorded his face and hers. Are you going to tell me if that's love? I froze. I didn't know what he wanted to do with that. If he planned to ruin the wedding, if he just wanted to torture himself more. I wrote to him to please not do anything, that it was over, that it wasn't worth it. He didn't reply. And then I realized something. It wasn't about the wedding, it was a war, and it was just beginning. When the ceremony ended, nobody would say it, but there was tension even in the air. Everyone was clapping, smiling, crying with emotion, but you could tell that there was a group that was there only because they had no choice. I was among them, and so was my wife. We looked at each other like someone pretending in a work meeting where everyone hates each other, but you have to act like everything is perfect. The couple walked out of the altar as if they were the protagonists of a fairy tale. Her with that, I one smile, and him, well, he was more nervous than happy. Maybe because he knew that somewhere his older brother was watching him, or that he could be. He didn't confirm it to me, but I know he suspected it. During the cocktail hour, after the ceremony, I stepped away for a moment and called my oldest son. I needed to know where he was, if he had gone, if he was in the parking lot with a bottle and a lighter. He answered on the third ring. I'm home, he said. Cold tone. I asked him if he was planning to do anything with the video. He replied, no, not yet. I told him I didn't understand what he was looking for with all this. He said, to let him know that he won't forget so easily, that even though everything went perfectly for him today, that face he made when he saw me walk in, he's going to dream about it every night. I didn't know what to answer, but I understood something important. This was no longer about love or her or even the betrayal. Now it was personal, it was revenge, and it was growing. I went back to the hall. Several relatives approached, cousins, uncles, everyone wanted to know how we were doing. If we knew about the drama between the boys, some didn't even try to hide it. An aunt even said to me, jokingly, so which of your two sons are you supporting in this soap opera? I wanted to smash the glass in her face. During dinner, things continued to be tense. We sat at a table with other relatives, far from the newlyweds. Every now and then she looked at us. I don't know if it was my paranoia, but I felt her eyes saying, I have them here, I won. It may have all been made up in my head, but when someone makes you doubt your own children, you start to see intentions even in a glance. My youngest son approached a couple of times, thanked us for being there, hugged us. I told him I hoped he knew what he was doing. He just said, I know. And he left. That was it. There was no real conversation possible. Then came the time for the speeches. Her father spoke first, said generic things, the kind that seemed copied from Google. Then a friend of the bride spoke. You could tell she was trying to sound sentimental, but we all knew she was drunk. And then, to everyone's surprise, my youngest son took the microphone. He said he wanted to speak as a brother, as a son, and as a new husband. I already knew this was going to end badly. He started by thanking everyone for coming. His in-laws, his friends, Catherine. Everything was fine up to there. But then he said something like, "And thanks to my parents for coming, even though not everyone did." Silence. My wife looked at me. I clenched my jaw. He continued, "I know there were difficult decisions, but true love doesn't always arrive in the right order. Sometimes things don't go as planned, but I chose to follow my heart. And even though that cost me relationships, I think it was worth it." There was no longer a speech, it was a stab. He didn't say it directly, but everyone understood, everyone who knew, which were more people than I thought. When he got off the stage, there was lukewarm applause. Nobody knew if this was a happy thing or a declaration of war. The night went on. Dancing, music, drinks, the typical wedding, but with a strange energy, as if we were at a play where the audience knows that the actors hate each other in real life. We left early, didn't say goodbye to anyone, just got up and left. When we got home, my wife went upstairs without speaking and got into bed. I stayed downstairs. I opened a beer and sat in front of the turned-off TV. And then I got a message. It was from my oldest son. It just said, "I hope it was worth it." I didn't answer because I didn't know what to say, because maybe it had been worth it. Or maybe we had just lost both of them forever. The days after the wedding were strange, silent. Nobody called, nobody sent messages. It was as if everyone had decided to pretend nothing had happened. My wife and I continued with our routine, but something in the house had changed. It felt hollow. It wasn't sadness. It was like when the power goes out and everything is too quiet. Like that. The honeymoon lasted a week. We learned from Instagram that they had gone to Hawaii. Photos on the beach, drinks with umbrellas, wide smiles, feet in the sand. All so perfect it seemed like an insult. I don't follow either of them on social media, but the cousins shared everything, and every time my wife saw a photo, she changed it instantly, not out of anger, but because she didn't know how to look at it without feeling like she was in a nightmare. The other one didn't say anything. My oldest son disappeared. Not a call, not a message, nothing. And that hurt more than any passive-aggressive speech, because we knew it wasn't out of pride, it was out of hurt. He wasn't angry anymore. He was broken. One Friday night, 3 days after the newlyweds returned, my wife received a message. It was from the bride's mother. She requested a meeting. She said there were some things to discuss, that it was important. They agreed to meet at a coffee shop near downtown. I didn't want her to go alone, but she insisted. She wanted to hear what they had to say. She wanted to understand if there was something we didn't know. She came back an hour and a half later, came into the house, hung up her coat, sat down in front of me, and said, "They used us." I didn't understand. At first I thought she was speaking figuratively, but no, she was speaking literally. The bride's mother told her that for months her daughter had been in contact with our oldest son, that she sent him messages, that she replied to his stories, that she played the "I just wanted to know how you were doing" game, all while she was already dating his brother. And that she, the mother, had told her several times, "You're playing with fire." But the daughter didn't listen. According to her, it wasn't a big deal, that she just wanted to close that chapter properly, to keep the door open in case things went wrong with the new one, meaning with the younger son. The mother also told her that it wasn't the first time her daughter had done that she had a pattern, that she jumped from relationship to relationship without completely cutting off the previous one, that she left everything half open, like someone leaving a jacket hanging at someone else's house in case she comes back. My wife told me this with rage. She said, "They lied to our faces." And the worst part is that he knew. He, being my younger son. According to what the mother confessed, she herself had told him weeks before the wedding that she had seen messages from his daughter with the other brother, that things were strange, that it didn't seem completely resolved. And what did he do? Nothing. He said he trusted her, that the past didn't matter, that the only thing that mattered was that they were together now. I'm not surprised that she was like that. We already had a hunch. But that he knew and went ahead anyway, that messed me up more. My wife asked me, "Do you think he married her for love or just to beat his brother?" And I didn't know what to say, because I started to suspect the same thing. 2 more days passed. We didn't know what to do with that information. It wasn't something we could just let go, but we couldn't keep it quiet either. So we did what we never wanted to do. We went to find our oldest son. He opened the door looking like he didn't want to. I didn't blame him. We told him we needed to talk. He let us in, and there we told him everything. About the messages, about not completely breaking things off, what the mother said, everything. He was silent, leaned his back against the wall, closed his eyes, and said, "I knew it." That was the worst. He explained that he didn't have proof, but he had felt it, that there were things that didn't add up, comments, silences, the way they looked at each other. That's why he went to the rehearsal, to see them face to face, to see if there was doubt in her eyes or guilt in his. But he found neither, and that destroyed him more. He told us that he didn't want to know anything else, not about her or him or us if we kept trying to balance things. He said that you couldn't build a family on lies, pacts of silence, and pretending nothing happened. That if we didn't have the courage to call things by their name, then we weren't a family anymore. We asked him not to talk like that we were trying to fix it, but he stood up, opened the door for us, and said, "I don't want reparation, I want respect, and that doesn't exist anymore." And we left with the certainty that we had just lost him completely. After that, we spent weeks without contact with neither one of them, absolute silence. The kind of silence that isn't broken with a call or a message, the kind that's only broken when something big happens, something that forces you to talk again. And it happened. One Saturday morning, the home phone rang. It was my daughter-in-law, the new one, my youngest son's wife. I answered. At first I thought it was out of courtesy or because they wanted to invite us to dinner, to pretend normalcy, but no. Her tone was different, more tense, more urgent. She said, "I need to talk to you. Alone. Can I come over today?" I didn't know what to expect. We agreed. She arrived at 2 p.m. She came alone, as she said, no makeup, hair tied up, none of that Instagram queen pose she showed in the photos. She sat on the couch as if she didn't know whether to cry or scream. What she told us stopped us cold. The fight had started a week earlier. At first it was small things, normal arguments, newlywed nonsense. But in one of those arguments, my son, the youngest, had blurted out something that paralyzed her. "Now that I've won, don't give me a hard time." She didn't understand. She asked him what he meant. He said, "You're the trophy. That's it. The competition is over." Then she understood that it wasn't a metaphor, that it wasn't sarcasm, that he was serious, that he, in some corner of his mind, had always seen that relationship as a race against his brother, not as love, as a conquest. She said that she couldn't continue with someone who thought like that if that was what he felt, everything was a lie. And then he exploded, not physically, but with words, harsh, venomous. He told her that he had left everything for her, that he had burned bridges with his own flesh and blood, that now she couldn't run away, that she had to stay and pay the price. She looked at us with teary eyes. She told us, "I didn't know I was marrying a guy like that. I thought it was something else, but this is a different person." She asked us for help, not in a take care of this way, but because she didn't know who else to turn to. Her parents were already fed up with the issue. They had tried to warn her, as they told us, but she didn't listen to them, and now she was afraid, not that he would do something serious to her, but of being trapped in a life that wasn't hers, in a marriage based on revenge. My wife hugged her, told her she wasn't alone, that we were going to help her even if it meant breaking everything that was left of that family. That same night we went to talk to him. At first he didn't want to open the door, then he agreed. He was annoyed, like a teenager being accused of cheating in a video game. He told us that everything was fine, that she was exaggerating, that it was part of the adjustment. All couples argue, he said. It's not a big deal. I looked him in the eye and said, "Did you marry her to screw your brother?" He didn't answer. Not yes or no. He just looked down. I repeated the question, loud and clear. My wife remained silent, waiting. He raised his head and said, "No. I married her because she chose me, because for once in my life someone preferred me." And then I understood everything. This wasn't coming from the bride or the brother. It came from years of feeling like the second one, the lesser one, the one who always came after, that insecurity that he never showed but that you could see in his eyes since he was a child, when his brother got better grades, when he was praised more, when they compared them unintentionally, and now he had turned that wound into a war. We told him that didn't justify anything, that destroying relationships wasn't going to heal him, that he was ruining himself, that there was no one left by his side. He defended himself, said that we didn't understand, that he just wanted to live his life, that if his brother couldn't accept that, it was his problem. And there, for the first time in my life, I told him, "No, this time the problem is you." He didn't yell, he didn't cry, he just sat down and was silent. We told him that we were going to support his wife if she decided to leave, that we weren't going to cover for him, that we weren't going to defend the indefensible anymore, that we loved him, yes, but that we weren't going to be accomplices. We left without waiting for an answer. That night, my wife and I talked like we hadn't talked in years. We cried, we hugged each other, and, for the first time in all this mess, we felt like we were doing the right thing, not for him, not for the other one, for us. The next morning was strange, almost calm, as if after everything that had happened we were finally breathing cleaner air. But it didn't last long. Around 10 a.m. we received a message from her. I left. Thank you for everything. I'm okay. I'll write when I'm settled. Short, direct. It didn't say where or with whom, just that. I left. My wife stared at the phone for a long time. Then she put it on the table without saying anything. I felt something mixed, relief because she had gotten out of there and, at the same time, a deep anguish. Because even though we didn't want to, even though we denied it, it was the end of their marriage, of the relationship with his brother, of the family as we knew it. That afternoon my youngest son came to the house, suddenly, rang the doorbell as if nothing had happened. When I opened the door, I knew he knew. He didn't say hello. He didn't ask if he could come in. He just came in and went straight to the living room. He sat down and said, "Did you tell her to leave?" I replied that no, that she left on her own, because she was fed up, because she understood that he didn't see her as a partner, but as a trophy, something he wanted to prove a point. He shook his head. He said that was an exaggeration, that it was never his intention, that he just wanted love, that he was trying to do things right. I interrupted him. I told him that this wasn't doing things right, that what he had done with his brother, with her, with us, was a disaster, that nobody forced him to choose that path, that he got into it on his own, and now he had to face the consequences. There he broke down. I saw him as I hadn't seen him in years. Really crying, not angry, not acting, crying like someone who knows they messed up big time and there's no going back. He said things, broken, disjointed, that he always felt less than, that he hated feeling like the other son, that the only time someone made him feel first was with her, that he didn't think it would end like this, that he didn't know how to fix it. My wife hugged him. I didn't move, not out of resentment, but out of exhaustion, because you can forgive many things, but there comes a point where they break you so much that you don't even have the strength for forgiveness. I told him that he needed to do something he had never done, apologize to his brother, not to us, that he shouldn't expect him to hug him or forgive him, but that he owed it to him. And he was silent. He nodded. He said he would. 3 days passed. We didn't hear anything. We didn't know if they had seen each other, if he had dared, if he had followed through. Until one Saturday afternoon, just as my wife and I were coming back from the grocery store, we saw the two of them on the sidewalk, together. They weren't hugging, they weren't laughing, they were just standing in front of each other, talking like two people who have a messed up history behind them, but who are at least listening to each other. We didn't approach, we didn't interrupt, we entered the house in silence. That night my oldest son wrote to me. He just said, he apologized. I'm not going to forgive him, but I listened to him. That's enough. I replied, thank you for that. I don't know if this is an ending. I don't know if they will ever be brothers like before. Maybe not. Maybe this is all that can be expected, that they talk, that they don't hate each other, that they don't erase each other from the map. She didn't come back. We don't think she will. She said she needed time. Maybe she'll rebuild her life in another state. Maybe not. It doesn't matter. It's not our story anymore. My wife and I continue, with fewer illusions, but with a clear conscience. We did what we could. We made a lot of mistakes, but we also put ourselves out there. We were there. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.